Good morning, Year 7, and welcome to your feedback video for this week. As you may remember, as part of your remote learning, I will be providing weekly feedback on the work that you completed in the previous week. So this feedback video focuses on the knowledge that you covered last week, especially focusing on the quiz that you completed yesterday, okay? Because that was a really good summary of everything that you'd done in the previous week. So first of all, just going to have a quick look at these quiz scores, the average quiz scores, and just to celebrate how well you all did. All right, so our class average was 71%, all right, which I think is really, really good. Okay, ideally we do always want to be pushing for around 80, but I think considering this topic is quite fresh, that's quite good. All right, so well done. And our top scorers came in at 91%, 11 out of 12. You'll know who you are. All right, and secondly, 83%, 10 out of 12. So well done for that. Okay, but on the whole, everybody, well done for participating. All right. Now that we have sort of talked about that, though, I am going to go back over some of the common areas and our answers. Okay, we're going to look through the quiz itself and then have a look at a couple of things in a bit more detail. So we're now going to actually have a look at the quiz itself. Okay, I'll quickly scroll through and see which ones we got right and which ones we may just need to make a note of. Okay, so question number 1, written or spoken language in its ordinary form is known as, the correct answer is prose here. Okay, so prose is what you would call just any section of text. All right, so especially you know, creative writing, stories, novels, that sort of thing is all written in prose. Okay, poetry has a particular form and structure and use of language. Okay, so prose is when you just have written or spoken language in its ordinary form. Number 2, William Wordsworth is a romantic poet. All 12 of you did get that correct. The one thing we've just missed is the capital letter there. Okay, in this instance, it doesn't mean romantic as in it's all about love and that's everything, all that he wrote about. It's the term romantic refers more to the movement and the style of writing and what they wrote about. Okay, so in this instance, the term romantic does need a capital R. Okay. Number 3, romanticism is a poetic movement that celebrates nature is the correct answer here. Okay, again, in this instance, the term romantic is not referring to kind of love and flowers and hearts and all that kind of thing. It is referring to the romantic movement, to the style that many poets did write in for a time, and their main focus was primarily nature. Number 4, what's the missing word in the famous line? I wandered lonely as it's a cloud. I wandered lonely as a cloud, high up over vales and hills. Okay, so the correct answer there is cloud. If you're one who didn't get that right, please do make a note of that. It's one of my favourite poems, that one. Number 5, Wordsworth suggests that nature can make us feel happier. Absolutely, well done. Number 6, which word means that a writer presents an idea in a clever and indirect way? The correct answer here is subtly. Okay, and what that means is the writer's doing it in such a way you might not notice it, but it really does take an effect. All right, so it's something that's quite subtle. So if you're somebody who got that one incorrect, please make a note of that keyword and that definition there, okay, just to remind yourself. Number 7, how many syllables are in each line of Wordsworth's poem about daffodils? And the correct answer there is 8. Okay, I wandered lonely as a cloud. 8 syllables in each line. Okay, and that repeats for the entire poem. Number 8, which letter should the apostrophe come after in the word I've? I'm just going to look at the wording of this question here, just so that will help to explain why the correct answer is what it is. It says, which letter should the apostrophe come after in the word I've? So all you would have to do here is write down the letter that it would come after. In this instance, because we know that this is a contraction of I have, the apostrophe would go in between the I and the V. Okay, so those of you who have put the letter I there, that's why that one's coming up as the correct answer. Okay, because you've just popped the letter in. All right, however, the other options down here are still correct as well. You've still put the apostrophe in the right place. That just comes down to how the question's worded. Okay, so the apostrophe should go in between the I and the V. If that's something you got wrong, please make a note of that. Number 9, if a writer tells us what actually happens in a precise way, we call it literal language. They're telling you what literally happened. Okay, which moves us on to number 10. Is the line "the grass is green" an example of literal or metaphorical language? And it's literal language because grass is green. And the writer is telling us it as it is. Number 11, you are all stars. Is that an example of literal or metaphorical language? And you've got this one right. It is metaphorical language. Okay, so although I do think you're all stars, you're not the literal hot glowy things from up in space. Okay, so that is an example of metaphorical language. Number 12, copy this phrase exactly as it appears here, but add an apostrophe in the correct place. The cat's tail. So in this instance, we're going to be including an apostrophe to show possession. Okay, so the correct answer is that the apostrophe needs to go in between the T and the S, okay, because the cat owns the tail. Okay, so this one's correct, this one's correct, this one's correct. Yep, all the answers there are absolutely correct. So well done. All right, getting the apostrophe in the correct place there. And then finally, question 13, the summary question. Why are metaphors effective in writing? And this is something I'm going to explore in more detail in just a moment. So just going back to the PowerPoint here. There are two things in particular that I wanted to focus on in more detail based off of your answers on that quiz. And the first of these is using apostrophes, okay? Apostrophes are either used to show possession or contraction. Those are the two purposes of apostrophes. When you're showing possession, you're using it to show who owns the object in a sentence, okay? So my examples I've got there, Mrs. Hodgkinson's classroom, that shows you that I own the classroom, okay, by including the apostrophe S there. Becky's chocolate, okay, that shows that Becky owns the chocolate. And then the second purpose of apostrophes is to use in contractions. And this is to show that letters are missing. So for example, it is becomes it, did not becomes didn't, was not becomes wasn't. Okay, it's always good to use the expanded form of the word if you can. Okay, but the apostrophe in these instances is showing you that some words or some letters are missing. Okay, with regards to it's in particular, sometimes you might say it's without including the apostrophe. Okay, and the best way to work out whether or not you need the apostrophe is in the sentence to say aloud it is in the space where you've got it's. If that doesn't make sense, then you probably don't need the apostrophe. Okay. And then the second thing I wanted to concentrate on based on your answers there is just to consider, why are metaphors effective? Why do we use them? Why are they effective linguistic devices? Metaphors are effective linguistic devices to use because they allow the reader or the listener to imagine the scene you are describing. By describing things in such detail with things like metaphors, you're really allowing the reader to build up that image in their head. Okay, and a reader can also be made to have a certain reaction to your writing depending on the scene you describe. If you're trying to make your reader feel happy or sad or sympathetic or something like that, okay, what you describe and how you describe it can really aid in that. So that's all for today's feedback video. On the whole, well done on all the work you've been submitting. Okay, I'm really impressed with the quality of work that's coming in, and keep up the good work. Okay, any questions anytime, get in touch. But otherwise, I'll leave you to it. Have a good week, and the next feedback video will be up next week. Take care.